podcasts, you can go to Microsoft.com/webcast. Thanks again for joining us on today's TechNet webcast, PowerShell Essentials for the Busy Admin, part 4 of the 5-part series. It's now my pleasure to introduce your presenter, Ed Wilson. Ed, you have the floor.
Thank you, Phil. Hello, everybody. It's Ed Wilson. I'm the Microsoft scripting guy, and today we'll be in part number 4 of 5, and what is PowerShell Essentials for the Busy Admin? Well, today we are going to talk about the main event. When does PowerShell does event logs? This is actually one of my favorite things to do with Windows PowerShell, because using Windows PowerShell to parse the event logs actually winds up, in many respects, being faster, and it's certainly more powerful than just simply using the graphical tool or the GUI tool. And along the way, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the, I kind of hate to say the new type of event logs. There are classic event logs, the ones that have been around forever. I actually had a question about the system log, the application log, and the security log when I was taking my first MCSE exam back under NT 351. So these dudes have been around forever and ever and ever. So those are the classic logs, and we've got PowerShell commandlets that will let you create new event logs and write to these event logs. And I've got some articles about that on the Hey Scripting Guy blog. I'm not going to get into that because typically when I'm using those type of techniques, I'm generally doing that from within a script. And I'm not really wanting to write any scripts or be looking at scripts today on this. What I'm going to show you today is actually the way that I typically use these event logs. And I use these logs, and I use these tools and techniques, whenever I'm troubleshooting or whenever I'm working on a system. I would also encourage you, please make sure that you ask questions if you have questions. As a matter of fact, I took one of the questions that I had that was submitted yesterday, and I turned it into a Hey Scripting Guy blog article that's actually going to be published on Friday. And so yeah, these questions, I may address them. Well, I'll certainly try to address them at the end of the session, but I may also look at one of the questions, and it might be something that I think, hey, that's a pretty good idea, and I'd like to spend a little bit more time talking about it. So in order to do that, I may write a Scripting Guy blog article about it. Answering these questions at the end of the sessions here, in many respects, is somewhat akin to using Twitter to answer questions. I mean, you don't have much more than about 140 characters to answer these things. And so a lot of times I like to go over that. One of the comments that I got yesterday was that I need to kind of slow down a little bit, so I'm going to try to slow the pace down a little bit. We'll kind of see how that goes. So at this point, let's get started. I've already talked a little bit about this. There are two kinds of event logs, the classic event logs and the new style. And this is the part that I kind of hesitate to say new style because they were introduced in Vista. And Vista came out almost 3 versions ago. So Windows Vista's been around for a while. Windows 7's been around for a while, and we've got the beta for Windows 8. So ETW logs, or event tracing for Windows, in my mind, is not really the new style anymore. And so they're not quite classic yet. So the classic log system, application security, those things have been around forever, as I mentioned, and those are easy to work with and easy to deal with. Now, one of the things I was really surprised about is I wrote a Hey Scripting Guy blog article a couple of months ago, and I was in particular looking at these ETW logs. And what I was really surprised with is how fast and how much data this ETW style of log can generate data. Now, you go to MSDN and you read about it, and it says, well, this is a high-performance logging interface. Oh, yeah, right. Okay, well, what's a high-performance logging interface? I have no idea. Yeah, and as far as that goes, hadn't seen any major problems with the classic event logs. I mean, I try to write stuff to them. They write. The information's there. One of the things that's cool is there's actually a field that you can find in the for the classic event logs, and that is when the event is generated and when the event is written. Generally, those are the same. And so I had never really seen any problems or issues with the classic event log. So when I saw the fact that it said that this is a high-performance logging interface, I go, okay, yeah, big deal. I mean, it almost sounds a little bit like marketing speak, and I don't pay a whole lot of attention to marketing speak sometimes. But anyway, so when I was doing my Scripting Guy blog article, I started looking at stuff and started trying to analyze these logs. And there were times when we were getting more than 50 to 100 event log entries per second. And when I would analyze these things down to the smallest unit of time, which is a tick, I was still getting 4 or 5 entries per log, and at that specific tick in time. And so my conclusion from that is that filtering event logs just simply based upon time is not really good enough when you are working with these new ETW type of logs. And that was the important conclusion from that event log there. Now, one of the things, just like everything else, these diagnostic type of logs, we don't want them running all the time because they can consume so much data. They can generate so much use so much disk space. It could become a problem. And so generally we don't want to go over this. I've got a couple of Scripting Guy blog articles when I was talking about the ETW logs where I show you how to, in your PowerShell script, enable a diagnostic log or disable a diagnostic log. And that's generally what you want to do. You want to enable the log, you want to do your logging, then you want to disable the log and kind of get out. So I show you in those Scripting Guy blog articles, I show you how to do that. I'm not going to necessarily demo that today either. What I am going to do is show you how to manually enable these diagnostic logs, and I'll show you how we can query those. And that is the most important part. Later on, if you wanted to automate these type of processes and maybe put it into a script, I would highly recommend that you go to the Hey Scripting Guy blog and click on what is PowerShell in the Tag Cloud, and then go to Events and Logging and Monitoring, and from there you'll be able to find all of the events. So there's 2 kinds of event logs. You know, we have the classic logs, and then we also have the the not so classic, the newer logs. And with those, we also have 2 kinds of commandlets to use for this. And we have get when event, which will let us work with these newer event logs. And we have get event log, which lets us work with the older logs. And using get when event is a bit more tricky, and it is can be a bit of a challenge. And so I'm going to spend a lot of time kind of going over these and working with these different kinds of logs. Okay, so keep this in mind that there are 2 commandlets, get when event and get event log. You use get event log to go with the classic event logs, the older ones, and you use get when event to parse these newer ETW types of logs. Along the way, I will show you some of the things. To use these newer logs, then you're going to need to specifically make sure that you've got them enabled. And I'll show you how to do that. We can use the list provider to try to get an idea of the provider names. We can certainly look at and find the different logs that we have. Now, these logs have a tendency to be very long in names, and so a lot of times I like to do a search to find it rather than trying to attempt to type these things in. Well, let's pop over to the PowerShell console, and let's get started. So I'm going to now connect to the Windows PowerShell console, and I'm going to share it out. Okay, you should now be looking at my Windows PowerShell console. And so I'm going to show you first of all the get command, and I'm going to look for a noun. And I'm going to use some wildcards here. So you can see that I'm looking for nouns that have the name event in it. And I always, at least 60% of the time, the first tab brings up name, and I wind up generating that quite a bit. So this shows you all the event logs that we have, or commandlets that have the word event in the noun. And so this shows us that we have get event log and get when event. Those are the two that we want to use. Get event is actually more for like Windows type events, WMI events and stuff like that. Notice that we also have new event log. This will let us create a classic event log. We have write event log. That lets us write to a classic event log. And then we have clear event log, which will allow us to clear the events from a classic event log. And so we have a lot of commandlets that we can use with the classic logs, and that makes it really easy to do. So if I say get event log, then I can press a tab, and I can say show me the log name, the computer name, the newest entries before and after. I can specify a username, an instance, an index, and an entry type. We can look at the source and the messages and stuff like that. List will allow us to list all of the standard event logs that we have available. And so here we've got application, security, and system. Those are the main ones. And then we've got hardware events, IE, KMS, Media Center, and then we have this Windows PowerShell log. This Windows PowerShell log generally does not have anything very interesting in it. And yeah, so it's letting you know that PowerShell started, that everything was fine. I don't think I've ever really found anything that was really interesting that I needed in the Windows PowerShell log. So this lists all of my classic event logs. Now, there is a parameter that is called force, but it's not here. And this is because that this is listing all of my logs. So trying to use the force here isn't going to help because these are the logs that we've got. Now, using get when event, we will need to use the force. Now, if I take a look, then I can look at help on this commandlet, get event log, and press enter, and it shows me the parameters that we've got. So the first thing, the log as a string, this is listing the event log, and it's using the list parameter. When we do this, then I can't do very much else. I can connect to a remote computer and list the event logs, but that's about it. Now, if I'm wanting to specify my log name, then I have to use what's called the second set of commands, and that's these right here. So the first set of commands, I can basically use list against a remote machine. The second set, I can specify the log name here. We can use the instance ID, the after, the before, the computer name, the entry type, the index number, which you're not generally going to know, the message, newest, and source, and the username, and stuff like that. Now, this username that's listed here is the username that's referenced in the event log entry. It doesn't allow you to specify a credential to connect to a remote machine. So, if I use get event log, and I try to do this on a remote computer, let's say DC3, then I say I want the newest one item. This command is going to fail. And the reason is that I'm logged on as a normal user, and I do not have rights to the remote machine. And I cannot supply credentials for this commandlet. So I press enter, it says log name application, and I press enter, and then we get the error back. So, bummer. Now, if I need to do this against a remote machine, this time I am going to specify my log name because the command will work. Log name application. Then what I need to do is put this in a script block. So that's what the curly brackets are. And then now I'm going to say invoke command. Specify the computer name and specify the credentials. Now, when I run this command, a dialog box is going to pop up, and the dialog box will allow me to type in the password for this. You're not seeing, yeah, you do see the dialog box. Okay, so I can now type in my password. And then I say, okay. And now it takes those credentials, and it sends this command to the remote computer, and I retrieve this information. Now I can compare this with the newest entry from my local computer. And I press enter, and we can see that the newest entry on this computer, they were both informationals. This came from SCRECLI, and this one came from the Desktop Windows Manager. And so this is actually could be very interesting because I can run these commands against multiple machines. And what I'm going to do now is generally when I'm working remotely, I like to store my credentials in a variable. And this makes it a lot easier for me to be able to do this. So I'm going to say $credentials is equal to get credential. And I can specify my username if I want to. And I press enter. The dialog box pops up to the window, and I type in my password. And this makes it easy now to work remotely. So I'm going to come back up here, and this time I'm going to run this command against DC1. DC1, and my credentials are the credentials that I have stored in my variable. Now, as we mentioned yesterday in one of the Q&A, I don't want to press tab here because it'll delete the remainder of my command. And so I'm invoking this command here. Now, actually, I don't need this part here where I had the computer name because I'm running this command actually on DC1. And so I'm going to run this command on DC1 and to my log name, and I say okie dokie. I press enter, and I get the values back in just a little bit. Okay. Now let me take a look at the help on invoke command. And I want to show you something that's real important. And it is right up here on the very top line. See my computer name, and then it says the computer name is a string, and I'm highlighting the word string here. And then you see that there is a square bracket. Now that square bracket means that that computer name accepts an array of computer names. So I'm going to press my up arrow here, and this time I'm going to specify CN equals comma DC1 as well as DC3. And this is going to retrieve the most recent entry from both of these computers from the application log. And I press enter, and we can see that we get the information back. So from DC1, then this was the first entry, and DC3, that was the most recent entry. Now I can format this if I want to. And so, for instance, I can pipe this out and send this to select, and I'm going to select the message, well, and the entry type, and the message. And That's good. And then I press enter. And this gives me a little bit better information. So it talks about the security policy, and then this is from DFSRS and blah, blah, blah. Now, if I need to expand this, then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say select dash expand and press enter. And so now we've expanded this entry. And so the first one is the security policy and the group policy object has been applied successfully. This was this entry for from DC3. Okay, that's cool. And we can see that that these two entries were, maybe 30 minutes apart in time. Actually, longer than longer than that. And so then this other one, DFSRS, sysvol, blah, 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 database, blah, blah, blah. Online defragmentation has completed a full pass on this database, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we found out from here that when we did the online defragmentation. So my source here was from ESEInt, and the instance ID was like 701. Okay? Now, maybe this is something that I really feel like I want to dive into on DC1. So I'm going to come back over here, and this time I'm not going to run this against both computers. I'm only going to run this against DC1. And let's just say the newest 10 entries from application log. And now I want from the source, and I'm going to press tab here. Source is ESEInt. And the instance ID is 701. And now I'm going to close this. And I'm going to send this, I'm just going to leave it alone for right now. I'm going to run the command. And this will give us 10 entries of this event. And so that looks like it's bringing the information that I want. And so now I'm going to send this to select. And I'm going to only select the message and the time. Now, this is actually really funny. And I did this on purpose. And the reason is that I've mentioned to you at least more than one occasion this week already, where most of the time we can use this this header, this column header, and it lets us know the value that we need to retrieve. And then therefore we can use this later on. Unfortunately, this particular commandlet doesn't do that. And the time is not the property. As a matter of fact, there are two properties related to time. I mentioned them at the very beginning of the session, time written and time generated. And so this one here, I would have to figure out which property this actually maps to, but they chose one or the other. Probably time generated, but I'm not certain on that. And so we need to modify this value. So we cannot use this column header right here for time. And so time written. And now we get our values back. And I'm going to send this to a table, so we'll go format the table. And I'm going to auto-size it, and we say groovy. And so now we find out that these are the different times in which the sysvol was doing its online defragmentation. And as a matter of fact, we see that these were all occurring on the 15th at just about an hour apart as it was going through these things. Cool. So this is something that's kind of interesting. Now the next thing is maybe we are interested in is my other server doing this as well, because it's also a domain controller. And so I'm going to go back now. and I'm going to add this back to DC3 and press enter. And so we can see from DC1 and DC3, and as a matter of fact, that's not. So what's really weird here is DC1 is doing the online defragmentation just about every hour on the hour. But DC3 has not done an online defragmentation since February the 21st. And then we get to the 17th, which was 4 days. The 12th, yeah, it was 5 days. This is 10 days. And then this is like a month or 3 months or something. So this is something that might be, maybe we need to do a little bit of investigation on here. And so you can see how we got to this point. So I'm displaying my history now. So we started off by looking at get event log. And we did our help, and we've seen that we had computer name parameters, but we did not have the ability to do credentials. We tested that fact and tried to connect to the event log. We got an error. Actually, this command prompted for the log name, and then we got the error. But even so, because we did not have rights to connect to that computer. So then I used invoke command. I specified credentials, and essentially did the same command over here, and that worked. And so we saw that information. So then we decided that we would store the credentials in a single credential object, and you have seen how I've used that ever since then. And so then I connected to a remote computer. I got the newest entry. That was fine. And then I showed you that I could use an array of computer names, and so we did those queries there. Based upon some information that we saw that came back from this, we decided to investigate when our Active Directory database, the ESENT, was actually doing its online defragmentation. So I pulled back 10 entries, and we've seen that on DC1, this is occurring every hour on the hour. These next 3 commands was just doing a little bit of formatting, if you will. And then I decided, well, let me run this, go back now, do the same command, and take a look and see, compare my DC1 to DC3. And we found that DC3 was only doing the defragmentation, you know, once every few days. And so now this does give us an idea that maybe we want to take a look at something and try to see what is the difference between these 2 domain controllers, and why is DC1 defragmenting the database every hour on the hour, and DC3 doesn't even do it but once a week, if that often. So this is how we can use this type of stuff to kind of go through here and easily pull the data in from multiple computers and then do some analysis of it. Now, what I was doing here is, well, to be honest, I mean, it's inefficient because I'm rerunning this command over and over and over again. And if my intention is to analyze the data, then it would make much more sense to store that data in a variable and then compare it. Okay? So let's actually do that. Let me show you how I might do that then. So I invoke my command, store all this information, it's going to bring back multiple instances of this. I'm just going to store this in a variable, $A is equal to this. And I press enter. La, 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 there it is. So now I say $A, and we can see that this is my information. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to now just kind of go through and show you some of the things I might want to do. So I may want to send this to format table. FT is an alias for format table, and I'm going to choose the time written and time generated. And I'm going to auto-size it and say OK. Now, this is the kind of command that lets me know, do I have a problem with latency here? So the event is generated. Is it written to the log at the same time, or is it written to the log 5 minutes later? And remember, I told you I had never seen an issue with this. And this is the case here. We don't really see an issue. So that's cool. So now what I'm interested in is the time written and and maybe I want to use the time written and the source. Well, I already know what the source is because I've already selected that individually. And so let's take a look now at only the message. And we can see the message is truncated, and so I'm going to expand this message. And this expands the message. And so we can see that this is, in fact, each of these is completing a full pass on the database. So this shows that I can store the results of the query. And if I anticipate doing a lot of analysis, if you will, then that's exactly what I want to do. I don't want to run this command 7 different times against my remote machines. Well, here it didn't hurt much because I'm not pulling back much data. I'm limiting it to like 10 entries at the most, and I've got a gigabit switched connection to each of these remote computers. But in other circumstances, if you've got if you're pulling back more data, or if you're pulling back across a WAN where you're going to have less less room to work, then you definitely want to be storing it into a local variable so that you can do your analysis work. Okay? So, it shows we're looking at the different things. Oh, I do want to show you a command that's in my my slide deck, and this is actually a pretty cool command. So, get event log, and we'll specify the log name. And the log name is the application log. Application log. And then I'm going to specify that my source is WAN management. And then I'm going to pick out the newest 5 entries. And so we can see here that there were a couple of errors. And so now I'm going to specify that I want to find out the entry type of error. And so now we've got, notice that in this first column we got the 5 newest entries from WAN management. 2 of those were errors, 3 of them were type of 0. When I up arrowed and I changed it to my entry type of error, then I had left the newest 5. So this left me with only 5 errors. Okay? So, and these errors go back to, March, to the beginning of the month almost. Well, maybe I'm interested in what this message is. So this is working local here. So this is, I don't need to worry too much about it. As long as the query comes back fast, then I don't need to worry too much about, bandwidth issues because I'm on my local computer. Now, if I was doing this on a server, I may be interested in performance issues. So I'm going to select my message. And so the description for this event ID in WAN management cannot be found. And the message is still a little truncated, so I want to expand it. Spelling counts. And so we come back here, and this is a bit difficult to read. So we come over here. The local computer may not have the necessarily registry information for the message to display the file, or you may not have permission to access it. The following information is part of it. Select star from instance modification event within 60 where the target is a Win32 processor and the load percentage is greater than 99%. Okay, so kind of interesting. So what we have here is a permanent event consumer that is generating an error message from time to time, and this is actually the query. So if I wanted to troubleshoot this, then I would need to go in and try to find out where this event consumer is defined in, and then obviously try to correct it. So I thought that was pretty cool, and so I wanted to show that to you. So let's go back to our slide deck, and don't worry about us getting through the whole presentation because this slide deck only has just a few slides in it because I knew that I'd be spending most of my time working with this. So get when event for classic logs. Now I can use the get when event commandlet, and I can query the classic event log. So I don't have to just necessarily work with the with the performance logs or the newer types of logs. And one of the things that's useful about get when event is, remember on the very first, the second day when I was talking about pipelining, I said you want to keep stuff to the left of the pipeline as much as possible. So you want to filter out as much information as you possibly can prior to bringing it across the pipe. And so get when event has a query filter language that will allow me to create some very sophisticated filters. I did a whole week's worth of articles on the Hey Scripty Guy blog where I was talking about different ways to filter this information out. And this becomes real important when you've got a lot of data that you're wanting to try to sift through, particularly if it's data that you try to sift through from a remote computer. So we want to take a little bit of time to show you how to work with this. This chart right here is very useful. And when you get the slide deck, if you are spending much time working with event logs and managing remote systems, then I would actually recommend that you print this specific slide out and maybe post it in your cube so that it will allow you to try to figure out the different ways of filtering stuff, because this is pretty useful information. Okay, so we can filter out by the log name, by the provider name, by the path to the log, various keywords, and unfortunately the keywords don't accept wildcards and stuff there. In fact, most of these don't accept wildcards. Then we could, the level, the start time, the end time, the user ID, the data, and so forth and so on. So I've got some examples of using this to try to filter some of these logs out. And so I'm going to go over some of these, and then we'll jump back. Matter of fact, this is about the last slide that we've got. So when I get done with this demo, I'm going to also continue and show you how to query and how to work with the newer type of event log entries. And because I'm going to be doing that, then I'm going to share out my entire desktop on my computer. So we're going to share the whole desktop this time. And so you can see my desktop. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen because it's kind of jumbled here. And so get when event. Now, one of the things that we can do with get when event is we can use this to create a nice filter, to filter out some information. So I could say get when event, and it wants a filter hash table. We could do an XPath filter, an XML filter, or a hash table. Of these, probably the easiest one, well, I don't know. I could copy the XML query directly out of the graphical event log. And I talk about that in one of my Hey Scripty Guy blog articles. That makes it pretty simple. Trying to hand compose it gets to be a bit cumbersome. So a hash table. Now, a hash table begins with an ampersand, and then it ends with a couple of curly brackets. Inside this, what we have is a pair of key values combinations. So the key is then equal to a value. and then we separate these with a semicolon. So this is why you need that chart that we had on the previous slide, because it tells you what these fields are that I can use. So for instance, if I'm interested in querying from the application log, I can say log name is equal to, and then I can use a single quote or a double quote here. It really doesn't matter. A single quote is a literal, so I can just say application and close that. So that's one key value pair. And now I'm going to do a semicolon. And now I'm going to look for an ID. So the ID is equal to, and I just say 4107, and hopefully we'll have some entries that match this. Now I've got a space here. I don't have to have that space. I can get rid of that space if I want to, or I can leave the space there. It's not going to matter too much. And I press enter, and we can see that we got a bunch of entries that came back here. And so failed extract something or other. The provider name is a little truncated. So maybe what I'm interested in is I want to look at this data. So I can store this in a variable. And so I can say $A, select the provider name. So these are all coming from CAPI 2. Okay, so that's interesting. Well, let's look at the message now. And failed to extract the third-party root list from the auto-update tab. Okay, that's pretty important. Maybe this is something that I need to take a look at. So the third-party root list, these are for certificate authorities. And so that would mean that if I'm trying to access certain things at other locations, and if these root certificates aren't updated, then I may not be able to access them. So having these particular entries, looking at these entries, may be something that I want to pay attention to. Now, I can filter these things out by date if I wish. Now, if I look at this, this is actually kind of interesting. I'm going to say get date, and I'm going to pipe this to get member. And I'm going to specify that I'm interested in the member type of properties. And when I do, there is a date property. So this means that I can get the date by doing this. So that's the date. And notice that the date is as of midnight. So this will allow me then to get my start time here. So I could say then get when event and specify my filter hash table. It requires a hash table, so ampersand log name is equal to application. And then the ID is equal to, let's say, 1003. That's a second pair. Now my third pair is going to be the start time. Is equal to. And then now I'm going to say get date, and close my curly brackets. And when I do, then we found that these are the two most recent entries that were related to Office software protection. And let me show you something else. So I'm going to take a look at help on get when event. And when we do, then one of the things that we have here is we have the ability to do a credential object. So this is really cool. This is why this is the tool that you want to use in working with your event logs, because I don't have to use that invoke command. I can now just specify this as computer name. Let's say DC3, and then my credentials. I'm not certain that I've got any of these errors over there. This is always exciting. There we go. RPC server is unavailable. Okay, so I haven't opened up a remote event log on this, on that particular server. So, trying to think about which server I did do that on. But anyway, this is how you would you'd use this to do a direct query on this. But it does require a hole in the firewall to be able to manage it in this particular way. And let's try SQL 1. I'm not sure if that one, if I've opened it there either. No. Oh, so yeah, this one we did, but we didn't get that particular event. So now, let's get rid of that ID. And so we can find that on this particular machine, all of our errors are MSI installer errors. And that's actually kind of interesting. So maybe we want to filter out on 1015 or 1035 and take a look at those errors. So this one, remember that we have to have a hole in the firewall for remote event log management. And that's something that you can actually specify in the firewall settings if you want to do that. Okay, what I want to do now is to show you how quickly how to turn on a trace log and to do a query on that. So this is the event viewer. Now the first thing that you have to know is that we need to check right here where it says show analytic and debug logs. By default, that's not turned on. So once you check that, then this will display it. Now, this requires admin rights, and I started this using run as to run this with an administrator because I'm wanting to now come over and enable my WMI trace log. So when I turn this on, now this error says that you'll lose entries in the event log once you enable it. Well, we can see I don't have any entries in the event log, so I'm just going to say OK. I'm not concerned about losing those. So now I'm going to generate some WMI traffic. So I'm going to come over here and say get WMI object 132_BIOS. And when I do, then that generates some WMI traffic. And if I hit refresh, we can see that we have some entries here. Now, these are all coming from a source of WMI activity is the source there. And we have a number of different entries and events. So I'm not going to go over reading and analyzing this data, but I just want to show you how you would turn it on and then show you how we can use get when event and then specify the logs. Now, if I just do this, I'm not going to find those event logs. And the reason is that, remember, we had to show them. Well, we need to use the force here in order to find these event logs. And so when we do, then we can see that these are the two logs. Now, I could select the log name, and then we can see, yep, this is my WMI activity trace provider. I can highlight that and press an enter here, and then I could say get when event, and then the log name is that, and this is really cool. And this says right here, and I did this kind of on purpose here. I actually forgot, but I want to talk about it anyway. So the event log trace can only be read in forward chronological order. This is because it's an analytical or a debug log. To do this, use the oldest parameter in your command. So this is the good thing about these about these error messages that they will really help you and be able to find this. So I want to see my oldest entries, so I press enter, and there they are. You can see that there's a whole bunch of these. Now we can also see that we've got event IDs 1 and 5 and 2. Well, 2 is my provider information. So I'm going to come over here, and I can what have to do a filter hash table if we want to do this. So now we need to come over here, filter hash table, and then you would go through and query it that way. It's easier if you just kind of like, playing around here on your local machine. It's easier to just go ahead and set it to a where clause. So where curly bracket $ underscore dot ID is equal to 2. And then we close this, and then we got our information, and then now we can send this to a format list with a star. And when we do this, then we look at we're interested in the message property here primarily. And we can see that we were able to query the Win32 BIOS. Now, if we were having a problem with WMI, then we could easily come over here and say where the message matches Win32 underscore BIOS and close that out. And now we can find that there are 3 messages that are related to our particular query. And so just because we have this filter syntax doesn't mean that you have to use it. And when you're working interactively at the Windows PowerShell prompt and you're analyzing a log, maybe you're trying to troubleshoot your WMI stuff, or you're trying to analyze a particular problem, then don't get too mixed up on trying to write the most effective or the most performant query. As long as you're not killing the system, and as long as you're getting your data, then do what's easiest. And that's what I was trying to illustrate here. Certainly I could recast this and use that filter language hash table to pull out only these specific entries. But it's easier just to throw it to a where clause and do it that way. And then PowerShell 3, it's even easier because we can get rid of some of these curly brackets and the underscores and stuff like that. But we're not going to get into that right now. So that is, believe it or not, our hour is just about drawing to a close. I hope it's gone as quickly for you as it has for me. Don't forget the Hey Scripty Guy blog. I've got lots of good stuff, particularly on this stuff with working with the event logs and the event entries and stuff, working with this particular get win event commandlet. I've got a lot of stuff there, so you definitely want to get over there. So let's take a look at the questions now. Transcripts. Nope, I didn't start transcripts, but the commands are in the slide deck. I should have done transcript, but then it's like having to get them up to the end. How come if you don't put an asterisk at the end, you get different results? Because I was looking for specific event logs, and the asterisk is a wild card that helped me to find a piece of that. I have a lot of event logs on my machine, get an event log like list. Should I clear the old logs occasionally? Sure. If you don't need that data and it's from like a year ago, maybe it was like a setup activity log, sure, you can certainly do that. I've written some Scripty Guy articles where I talked about analyzing the size of the log, and if it was more than half of it, archiving it and then getting rid of it. To use invoke command, PowerShell remoting has to be enabled. Yes, that is correct. How can I supply the password in a PowerShell command rather than seeing a pop-up prompt? There is a way that you can save the credential object offline. Lee Holmes has a blog article on his website, which is Precision Computing, where he talks about taking a credential object, storing it in a file, and then reading that credential object and reconstituting it. Any way to view the expanded message with the other columns like that? That's where I use the -expand property to expand that one property. If you're wanting to have multiple columns and to make those properties a little bit wider, I have a Scripting Guy blog article where I talked about some of the system variables, and there's a variable there that you can expand that will allow this to show a bit more information. Notice there could be an issue talking to trusted domains and patching credentials. Good rules of thumbs work around to prevent these issues. Doesn't seem to like trusted domains, but will easily work in the primary domain. In the primary domain, yeah, it's absolutely, it works really well. Sometimes you need to modify like your trusted hosts in order to be able to work in the other domains. It does get a little tricky and play it by ear. There's some articles on TechNet where it talks a little bit about this, but and I've seen some articles from a couple of MVPs, but I haven't seen a really good article about that. Using the GetWin event, how do we query remote computers? I can specify computer name like I did, but where I can use invoke command. Like I showed you during the demo, you have to have the remote event log management has to be enabled in the event log in the firewall, or else you can't use any of these type commands. Do I have anything special when running remote queries against 6432? No, I have not had any problems or issues with this. The DC1 server that I connected to is a 32-bit server that was running Windows 2008. The DC3 is a 64-bit version that's running 2008 R2. And my desktop machine here is a 64-bit computer, so there's not an issue in working with that. Can I use a PowerShell script to execute when a particular event in event logs recorded? Yes, you can. Take a look at the Scripting Guy blog articles where I talk about eventing. So you can click on the what is PowerShell tag, and then it is you can go to and use events and eventing, or events and monitoring is the tag, and that will bring all those up. And I think I've even got an article where I talked about responding to when a particular event in the event log occurs. So a command to export the filtered hash table strings to Excel. Not that I know of. How would I set a query when I want all the events between two dates? Well, I use the start time and the end time, and specify date values for that, and that would get all of them. Is there a way to make force the default, and why? I do not know of a way to make force the default. Well, wait. The only way I could think of to do that would be to maybe modify the command, and you can do that by creating a proxy function. I have an article by Shay Levy on the Scripting Guy blog where he talks about creating a proxy command. So you could do it that way, but other than that, I don't know of a way. There might be an environmental variable, but I don't remember one. How would I export only parts of the message field? I've got an event in the 2012 scripting games where we're going to do that. And take a look at piping that message and then looking at get member. You can actually see there are some differences like substitution fields in there, and you can pick up those substitution fields. You can also use regular expressions, but that gets to be really complicated. Major differences in my book on PowerShell Step-by-Step and 2.0 Best Practices. PowerShell Step-by-Step is on PowerShell 1.0, and the PowerShell 2.0 Best Practices is on PowerShell 2.0. The PowerShell Best Practices book goes into the same kinds of information that the step-by-step book does, but it goes into it in a lot more detail as well as a lot of other additional information. And in addition, it talks about the it talks about all of the stuff that's in 2.0, you know, like remoting and stuff like that that wasn't available in 1.0. And am I going to be at MEC? No, I'm not, but I am going to be at TechEd 2012 down in Orlando. And I'll have a Scripting Guys booth down there, and we'll have a lot of MVPs will be hanging around. The Scripting Wife is going to be there, and I'm also going to have like guests, like Don Jones and Mark Manassi and Jeffrey Hicks and people like that that will be showing up at the Scripting Guy booth. Will the step-by-step book work with 2.0? Well, yeah, but it doesn't cover all of the new stuff. I am writing a PowerShell step-by-step book for PowerShell 3.0, and that will, that'll be coming out when PowerShell 3 comes out. Yes, the Scripting Wife will be at TechEd 2012 with me, and so that's it. So it's a little bit after, and I don't want to hold anybody up. That's all the questions we got right now, and so I will see you tomorrow, and that's it.
All right. Thank you, Ed. And ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude the webcast for today. We do ask that you please take a moment to fill out the online event survey, and you can get there by clicking on any of the links that are currently posted on your slide area, either anonymous, registered online, or all other registrants. Everything will take you to that evaluation. And we do very much appreciate your feedback, and it will affect future content for these webcasts. So the presentation is available for download in both a PowerPoint format and a PDF. You can go get the PowerPoint format from your upper right-hand corner, clicking on the Handouts tool. That is the documents, 3 documents there. You do need to be running the Windows version of Live Meeting to do this, or you can get the PDF version by going to the lower right-hand corner and clicking on the printer icon. With that, I'd like to extend a very special thanks to our presenter today, Ed Wilson, and we do hope to see you on the remainder of this webcast tomorrow. You may now disconnect, and have a great day.